Do you know why Yujiro Hanma is called the strongest creature? He has fought all over the world among humans, and to maintain his fighting senses, he doesn't hesitate to travel thousands of miles to the East African savanna to battle the fiercest African lions every day. Even the wild rhinos, which humans fear, are nothing more than food to satisfy his hunger in his eyes. However, this kind of life seems like suicide to ordinary people, but Yujiro feels incredibly lonely because he has no opponents. Until one day, a prehistoric giant elephant, tens of meters tall and weighing hundreds of tons, suddenly appeared. In just 3 days, it caused the deaths of thousands of animals and dozens of humans, with a daily food intake reaching a terrifying 20 tons. Such a fearsome monster quickly caught the attention of the military. However, whether it's sturdy armored vehicles or fortress-like tanks, under the foot of the giant elephant, they all became scrap metal, and even thermal weapons attacks could not harm it. Before long, the vast battlefield was strewn with casualties, leaving only one officer gasping for life. That's when Yujiro Hanma appeared. 1 second before the prehistoric giant was considered unbeatable by humans, and the next, he was floored by 2 punches from him. Even its nose was deeply torn off. Horribly extreme, yet such a monstrous creature also has an opponent worthy of his regard. That is Baki Hanma, who also belongs to the Hanma bloodline and has awakened the ghost brain. Unlike Yujiro, who travels to East Africa to train with brutal animals, Baki, with his ghost brain, has no need for this because he can construct powerful opponents in his mind and engage in one-on-one real combat training anytime, anywhere. Having said that, Baki started swinging at the air, and his punching speed got faster and faster. His facial expression became more focused, as if there really was an opponent in front of him. Just then, a phantom appeared out of nowhere. Although it's unclear what it is, it's certain that this phantom is engaging in a duel with Baki. As the fight intensified, the originally blurry phantom became more and more focused. Finally, boxing enthusiasts saw the face of the phantom. It was the former world boxing champion, Michael in his prime. The continuous signature combos. Even Baki seemed a bit strained. Indeed, Baki was sent flying with a nosebleed by a punch, just when everyone thought Baki was about to lose. Little did they know this was just his warm-up exercise. After readjusting his state, Baki walked up to Michael and delivered a lightning-fast high kick right to his face. Such an opponent was simply too weak for him. To defeat his father, Yujiro, Baki needed a much stronger imaginary enemy. Kobayashi-chan looked closely and was stunned on the spot. Was this just a praying mantis that could stir up much trouble? The mantis, as one of the most ferocious predators in the insect world, has evolved its body into a perfect existence with no weaknesses. Engaging in fierce battles with such an opponent is definitely more perilous than with the prehistoric giant elephant. Having said that, Baki's ghost brain power activated, and the originally palm-sized mantis began to grow barbarically at a visible rate. Finally, it became a huge creature comparable to a human in size. Just like that, man and insect faced each other, and a great battle was about to begin. Baki made the first move, with a lightning-fast whip kick that thundered out. But unexpectedly, the mantis's speed was even faster, and it immediately wrapped Baki up tightly. At that moment, Baki delivered a high-flying spin kick, but surprisingly, the mantis easily blocked it again and counterattacked, sending Baki flying in an instant. In a flash, the sound of a solid steel wall being smashed into pieces was heard. Baki, climbing back up, readjusted his state and then mobilized all his strength to attack the mantis. However, the mantis's strength was simply too great. No matter how Baki attacked, he always got caught in a counterattack. Even more terrifying was that the mantis's eyes could rotate 360 degrees, giving it a view without blind spots. A slight thought of escape flashed in Baki's mind, but thinking of his father, that cowardly thought disappeared. Reigniting his fighting spirit, Baki once again launched an attack, instinctively aiming for the mantis's neck, and the mantis was forced back several meters by the heavy blow. At that moment, Baki finally understood that the mantis's weak point was its fragile neck. Even more fortunately, Baki, in his extreme state, mimicked the mantis and used Mantis Fist. With the Mantis Fist enhancing his attacks, Baki's strikes became even more ferocious and ghostly, accurately hitting the mantis's neck each time. The mantis was gradually falling behind, facing Baki's attacks and being beaten back step by step. Soon, its body visibly began to shrink and finally returned to its original size, just the size of a finger. From the battle with the mantis, Baki learned a lot, but to use this experience to defeat Yujiro was still far from enough. So Baki embarked on a new journey. He wanted to go to America's most terrifying prison to challenge the freest man on Earth. Oliva. Even the swimming style of the real strong is so enchanting, bathing at a speed of 20 kilometers per hour in turbulent water flow using the world's most energy-consuming butterfly stroke. Probably only the strongest creature, Yujiro, could perform such a perverted act. Finally, after waiting for more than an hour, Yujiro, still unsatisfied, ended his warm-up activity. At that moment, the general brought the latest intelligence on Baki. When he learned that his son had actually defeated the imagined giant mantis, Yujiro laughed. In the eyes of the strongest creature, no matter how strong the imagined enemy is, it is false. Only the most real battle can stimulate the human body's potential. Baki had long understood this principle, so in a live broadcast across the US, in front of tens of thousands of special forces, he kidnapped the president and threatened the other party to send him into America's most terrifying prison. Baki did this entirely because that place held the freest man on earth, Oliva. Soon, Baki got his wish and entered the prison. After a series of detailed checks, Baki pushed open the last door deep in the prison. He had never imagined that just stepping forward, he would be completely stunned by the scene in front of him. Luxurious decorations, priceless paintings, and countless precious red wines. Is this really a place to hold prisoners? Oliva skillfully lights a cigar, looking at Baki with a face full of pride, his eyes gleaming with smugness. Baki sees the challenge in Oliva's eyes and responds with action. A powerful punch suddenly roars out, but who would have thought that Oliva's muscle strength could rival Yujiro's? This punch leaves him completely unharmed. Oliva knows the purpose of Baki's visit, but as the king of the prison, he will only duel with the second strongest prisoner in the prison, and the time is set for 1 week later. Thus, Baki is sent back to his cell. There he meets his first cellmate, the world boxing champion Michael. Baki thought he was the second strongest that Oliva mentioned, but to his surprise, the world champion here is just a minor character who can't even make it into the top 10. Baki is stunned by this revelation. If someone as strong as Michael is just trash in this prison, then who is the second strongest? With his face full of shock, Baki falls into a deep sleep. The next day, a kindly-faced man walks in. Shockingly, he is the second-ranked Kibaru, the one everyone fears. The appearance of Kibaru instantly boosts Baki's fighting spirit. He can't wait to challenge him. Just as a fierce battle was about to erupt, the timely appearance of a prison guard prevents this violent incident. Soon, it's time for the prisoners' outdoor time. They stand in line in the corridor, waiting for the guards to herd them. Here, prisoners have no dignity at all. The guards can beat and insult them at will. Even if you are a boxing champion, you must obey. Only Kibaru is an exception. He can move around freely and even smoke in front of the guards without any fear. He can even grab the guards' guns to play with when he's bored, and the guards dare not say a word. Most prisoners are thoroughly convinced of Kibaru's special privileges. However, not everyone thinks this way. And finally, one day, Japan's #1 sumo wrestler can't sit still anymore. He decides to challenge Kibaru today. Before acting, he tries to intimidate Kibaru by easily bending a metal spoon in half. Seeing this, Kibaru smirks and then shakes the spoon so fast that it soon becomes a twisted ball of metal. This absurd display is akin to a heart-stabbing killer. The enraged sumo wrestler immediately flips the table and attempts to take down Kibaru, but unexpectedly, Kibaru delivers a whip kick straight to the sumo wrestler's groin. The sumo wrestler collapses instantly. The fight ends in just 1 second, and Kibaru feels a bit unsatisfied, so he decides to have another duel with him, this time in the sumo wrestler's specialty. The sumo wrestler is immediately overconfident, vowing to regain his dignity, but he regrets it as soon as the match starts. The sumo wrestler uses all his strength, trying to lift Kibaru, but the opponent is like a 100-ton monster, immovable. Now it's Kibaru's turn to attack. He gently raises his hand, and the next second, accompanied by a crisp slap, the sumo wrestler's eardrum is pierced on the spot. Then Kibaru pulls out a strand of hair, twists it, and shoves it into the sumo wrestler's ear, yanking hard. In an instant, the eardrum is shredded. The sumo wrestler feels the world spinning, loses balance, and falls heavily to the ground. With this, Kibaru effortlessly defeats the Japanese sumo champion. Knowing all this, Baki becomes even more excited and challenges Kibaru again, expecting another earth-shattering battle, but a guard comes up with a baton. Then poor Baki is immediately locked in solitary confinement. At night, a sympathetic old man brings Baki dinner, and he very kindly tells him about Kibaru's background. Kibaru was originally a pirate who shook one region, and like Luffy, his dream was to conquer the entire ocean. He and his crew lived by robbing passing ships, and his life could have been very easy and comfortable, until one day, a foreign capitalist took a fancy to an island and forced them to work for him. The brutal exploitation made the islanders' lives miserable, and even a full meal was a luxury. Seeing such a situation, Kibaru decided to push for the island's independence. He trained all his subordinates into deadly warriors who could kill with their bare hands, but this was just the first step. To gain international recognition, they needed some country's acknowledgement, so Kibaru ordered his men to infiltrate the Pentagon, kidnap the president, and kill all the bodyguards and his wife's family in front of him. Finally, the president, under duress, agreed to Kibaru's demands and recognized the island's independence. From then on, Kibaru's reputation soared. He also became the president's secret weapon, invited to infiltrate the prison to shake Oliva's position. After solitary, Baki was arranged to work outdoors, laying the foundation. With his superhuman strength, what would take ordinary people dozens of hits to install a foundation, Baki only needs 2 hits. During rest, Baki and Michael chat about home. Michael is about to be released, and the first thing he plans to do is sign up for a boxing match. Unbeknownst to him, a plot against him is quietly approaching. That night, a check for $2 million is delivered to the warden's hands. The person who sent the check has only one goal: absolutely not to let Michael appear in the boxing tournament 3 months later, because the higher-ups absolutely do not allow a prisoner to win the championship. So to ensure the ratings are not affected, the boxing champion Michael must die within the prison. Being triplets, their incredible synergy has also earned them a resounding name within the prison. Though their opponent is a former world boxing champion, the trio is quite relaxed and comfortable. For them, Michael's muscle strength is at most 2.5. His dominance among ordinary people is solely because those people don't understand teamwork. Once they face their seamless cooperation, even a boxing champion has no choice but to take a beating. At first, Michael was arrogant, mocking his opponents, but before he could finish speaking, a lightning-fast punch smashed directly into his face. Michael was just about to counterattack when the trio's flawless teamwork kicked in. Their simultaneous punches left Michael with no escape, and after a brutal beating, Michael's mental defenses completely collapsed. Then, with a stroke of genius, he ran to a corner trying to turn the tide, but unexpectedly, even his signature move couldn't stop the storm-like attack from the trio. Eventually, one of the trio locked Michael from behind, while the remaining 2 started a brutal kickfest on his face. The leader pulled out a knife, aiming to cut Michael's tendons. At the critical moment, a flash of cold light sped through the darkness. Then, out rolled someone, none other than the dashing Kibaru. Kibaru's sudden appearance put the triplets on high alert. The 3 started moving to form a strong triangle, surrounding him completely. Right off the bat, they pulled out their best formation, the triangle formation, showing they didn't have much confidence in winning. Unexpectedly, facing such a dire situation, Kibaru ended the fight with just a PE. Kibaru casually lay on the ground, and the triplets showed no mercy, kicking wildly at Kibaru's face. After what seemed like an eternity, the triplets were as tired as dogs. And finally, Kibaru moved. Under their astonished gaze, he slowly walked to the windmill embedded in the wall. With a slight puff from his lips, Kibaru, smiling, looked towards the horizon. The next second, a wild wind and lightning roared, and the entire sky seemed to stir as if summoned. Kibaru tore off his coat, revealing his incredibly muscular body. With his muddy index finger, he traced strange symbols on his face. Then, a demonic face slowly emerged. Faced with such terrifying pressure, the triplets couldn't help feeling a chill down their spines. Was this the true power of the Pirate King? Though shocked, the triplets still braced themselves against the pressure and used their ultimate move, the triangle body formation. Just as the trio launched their combined attack, Kibaru smashed one of them with a punch that caused bleeding from all orifices and shattered teeth, sending the body flying with this terrifying force. Seeing their comrade's plight, the second one wet his pants, crying to go home to his mother, while the other stood frozen in place. With just one strike, Kibaru crushed the trio with his strength. After the battle, Kibaru returned to the prison as if nothing happened. Baki, dressed in martial arts gear, had been waiting for a while. This was his 3rd challenge to Kibaru. Just then, a large eye appeared outside the gate. It was none other than the king of the prison, Oliva. Oliva easily twisted the iron gate into a ball. Nonchalantly challenging Kibaru, Oliva decided to defeat all his opponents in front of his beloved woman, to prove he was her best companion. Mentioning his gorgeous girlfriend, Oliva couldn't help but pull out her handkerchief and start sucking on it madly. Oliva asked Kibaru if he wanted a sniff, but Kibaru spat out a mouthful of saliva. She is every man's dream companion, sexy red lips, fair face, and a mere 500 pounds in weight. She is Maria, the flower of the prison, and as Maria's #1 backup, Oliva epitomizes the term simp. Even a handkerchief scented with Maria's fragrance is considered a treasure by him and carried everywhere. Tomorrow is the decisive battle with Kibaru, but he's preoccupied with his date with Maria. Armed with high-end cologne and red roses, Oliva has done everything a simp needs, only to be cruelly rebuked by Maria. Far from being angry, Oliva feels it's his fault for upsetting the goddess. Such a subservient attitude is nowhere befitting the king of the prison. Yet, Maria is ultimately moved by his sincerity, for the first time uttering the words Oliva has longed to hear. At that moment, Oliva, like a madman, lunges at his goddess Maria. Naturally, Kibaru won't sit idly by. He takes out a long-cherished jar and watches it all night. The village youth, braving life-threatening storms on the cliff, holds the jar aloft, capturing the storm's fury. When Kibaru leaves, he personally hands it over. Undoubtedly, this jar symbolizes courage. Now, with the big battle imminent, Kibaru carries the hopes of all his villagers. He must break Oliva's undefeated myth at all costs. At this moment, over 4,000 prisoners and even the warden are secretly watching this battle. Everyone is curious about who among the two freest men in the prison truly deserves the title of king of the prison. As everyone eagerly awaited, another strange figure appeared in the corridor. He was none other than one of the main protagonists of this battle, Oliva. Surprisingly, Oliva appeared on the battlefield carrying an enormous double bed on his back. It wasn't until Oliva set the huge bed down that everyone could see. Lying on the bed was none other than Oliva's goddess. Maria, the legendary supreme goddess, made her first appearance, filling the eyes of over 4,000 prisoners with envy. Oliva thoroughly enjoyed this attention and started off by showing a flashy move. The cicada shedding its shell. Seeing his opponent even brought out the goddess Maria, Kibaru opened the jar of courage. Instantly, lightning and thunder erupted, and the wild energy of heaven and earth seemed to give this man infinite power. Thus, the two men faced each other, and the ultimate battle was about to begin. Everyone thought the showdown between the two would be an extremely brutal hand-to-hand combat. Unexpectedly, Kibaru took off his headband and, using it as a handkerchief, proposed a duel method that existed only in the medieval times. Both men held one end of the handkerchief and started punching each other. The first to let go would be the loser. This seemingly simple rule actually demands extremely high finger strength. However, for Kibaru, who can do a one-handed thumb stand, and Oliva, who can snap steel nails with his bare hands, this duel seemed tailor-made for them. Indeed, as soon as the fight began, Kibaru erupted with unparalleled strength, his powerful punches continuously smashing into Oliva's face. Each attack was strong enough to kill a normal person 100 times over, but unexpectedly, Oliva took dozens of hits. Just when his massive body was about to fall, Oliva steadied himself with his incredible finger strength. In contrast, in the rush, Kibaru could only pinch the handkerchief with both hands. Without a doubt, Oliva had the upper hand in the first round of the exchange. Oliva then cocked his little finger and pinched the handkerchief in front of Kibaru. Feeling the provocation, Kibaru kept a calm expression on his face, but in reality, he was already planning how to counterattack. Finally, Kibaru moved, and a few strands of his stubble shot into Oliva's eyes like lightning. Taking advantage of Oliva's temporary blindness, Kibaru charged again, using all his strength to instantly send his opponent flying. Although Oliva stabilized his form with his powerful muscle strength, he also had to use his entire hand to barely grasp the handkerchief. Even the goddess Maria mocked Oliva as a waste. Although Oliva completely ignored Kibaru's words, the goddess's disdain felt like a sharp dagger piercing his heart. When Oliva was distracted by his guilt, Kibaru seized the opportunity to start a series of furious attacks. For a time, the pitiful Oliva became a human punching bag, with blood scattered all around. Under the dual assault of physical and mental attacks, this powerhouse who had once reigned supreme in the prison finally became enraged. He decided to stake all his honor and have a final showdown with Kibaru. From this moment on, both would abandon holding the handkerchief and start punching each other. Whoever dared to step back would undoubtedly face a miserable defeat. The battle between the two had reached a fever pitch, with the goddess's disdain and the terrifying power unleashed by Kibaru. Both men were going all out in a brutal fistfight. Such an intense match left the prisoners staring in astonishment. However, Baki next to them couldn't muster the slightest interest, so he decided to add a bit of spice to this dull duel. The next second, Baki lay in Maria's arms right in front of the prisoners. Seeing this, Oliva was struck as if by thunder. His life's love had been preempted by Baki. Blinded by rage, Oliva roared at Baki. Unbeknownst to him, Baki wanted this effect. He saw the real duel as no rules, and playing tug-of-war with a handkerchief was a game for 3-year-olds. As Oliva's mind went blank, Kibaru suddenly made his move and kicked Oliva down with a mid-air kick, blood spurting from his nose. Then his palm raised again, and in a familiar scene, Oliva's eardrum was pierced on the spot. Kibaru obviously didn't plan to give Oliva a chance to breathe, attempting to crush the opponent's ear cochlea in the same manner. In this critical moment, unable to suppress his rage any longer, Oliva finally awakened. The power enough to crush everything made Kibaru feel fear. The next second, Oliva swung a heavy punch and blasted himself with an earth-shattering blow. The magnitude of the force smashed Kibaru deep into the wall. With just one hit, Oliva easily dealt with Kibaru. Such formidable strength made Baki instantly ready to fight. Just then, a strange and melodious song began to play. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and saw it was the seriously injured Kibaru, with weird symbols once again covering his entire face. Without a doubt, Kibaru was now in his strongest state, blinded by rage. For the first time in his life, Oliva awakened the power he had long repressed. With just one blow, he smashed Kibaru deep into the wall. Thinking all was settled, even Baki was preparing to face Oliva, but unexpectedly, the once eliminated Pirate King broke the calm again. He slowly walked towards Oliva, with the symbol of courage once again painted across his face, and executed an accelerated flying kick. The heavy hit knocked Oliva down. Almost everyone thought Kibaru had turned the tide with his strength, but only Baki nearby snickered, because he knew all too well that Oliva's strength was far from exhausted. Sure enough, Oliva did a kip-up and returned to the battlefield. Facing Kibaru's renewed punches, Oliva gauged the angle and slapped the opponent's face with one palm. Instantly, Kibaru felt like he had been run over by a heavy truck. His entire body shocked into a stupor. As Kibaru lay unconscious, his mind was flooded with images of his suffering people. A powerful belief, as if granting him infinite strength, reinvigorated him. Thus, Kibaru woke up again, bearing all the severe pain, and stood up once more. This time he decided to launch his strongest attack. Determined to defeat Oliva for the sake of his people, energy around them began to surge, even distorting the space. Seeing his opponent unleash such formidable power, Oliva's blood surged. Veins under his muscles bulged out as the King of Strength decided to meet Kibaru's mightiest blow with his fist. Moments later, Kibaru roared and delivered the most explosive punch in history, its hardness even surpassing that of the core of rocks. An intense explosion swept over the entire arena, and when Kibaru finally regained his senses, the cheers for him nearly flipped the entire arena. With even the strongest creature on Earth personally coming to the prison, Kibaru fully enjoyed the pleasure of victory. Little did he know it was all just a dream. As soon as the two collided, Oliva used his muscles to block the hit and with 10% of his strength, smashed his opponent's head into the ground. Thus, Oliva defended his title as the king of the prison, but another challenge awaited him. Kibaru had completed his farewell performance, but Baki's battle had just begun. Oliva did not directly respond to Baki's challenge but instead sent Baki flying with a slap. Having experienced this terrifying power, Baki realized how much greater the gap was between Oliva and Kibaru. Oliva is called the strongest man because he needs to consume over 100,000 calories daily just to maintain his muscle strength. Once Oliva fully releases his muscles, his skin will undoubtedly burst, and the entire prison could be destroyed in an instant. However, the true purpose of this perfect body is not for fighting but to carry Maria to any place he wants. Maria was once a true beauty. Due to a severe illness and the side effects of numerous hormone treatments, Maria eventually became what she is now. Since that day, almost everyone has seen Maria as an ugly woman, but only Oliva has never forgotten his initial feelings and secretly swore to do anything to make Maria happy. The battle for the king of the prison came to an end, and after his defeat, Kibaru left a letter and quietly departed. Seeing the currency exclusive to Kibaru's homeland in the envelope, there was no doubt this was the strategy that man had laid out for Kibaru. Oliva chuckled slightly. What a troublesome guy. The next day, the sun rose as usual, and the guards began their usual speech to the prisoners. Little did they know, a shocking upheaval was about to occur. To qualify to challenge Oliva, Baki had to become the third strongest man in the prison to earn the right to face the king of the prison, Oliva. Baki decided to start his escape from the prison today. After easily knocking down a few guards, Baki jumped down from the 5th floor and strolled towards the prison gate. The guards immediately took up arms, pulling out their guns to shoot. In Baki's view, they were all trash. With one kick, he blasted open the custom-made gate. Facing the gunfire of 3 guards, Baki swiftly closed the distance, and the guards fell instantly. Baki got the key and opened the last door to freedom. Now, if he could just cross the outer wall, he would become the 3rd prisoner in history that the prison couldn't hold. But plans don't always keep up with changes. The warden, along with his subordinates armed with submachine guns, was waiting in full force. Snipers nearby were also ready. There was no doubt that if Baki made any move, he would be shot dead on the spot. Such meticulous defense would have made any ordinary person comply, but Baki's speed had already surpassed human limits. He easily shattered the warden's glasses without him knowing. Even more terrifying was that Baki casually removed the buttons from the guards' chests, clearly showing restraint. If Baki had been intent on killing, everyone present would have become corpses. Thus, under the personal escort of the warden, Baki proved his status as a free man of the prison. The warden ordered him to be locked in the most torturous solitary confinement cell in the prison. Anyone sent there was shackled by the thumb, and even basic needs were restricted. Under the dual torment of body and mind, many prisoners turned insane from the unbearable burden. Yet, even so, Baki sat on the floor, sleeping soundly, until that man appeared. Baki knew the long-awaited battle was finally coming. Baki had been making waves in the prison lately, even taking advantage of Maria in front of all the prisoners. Every act had touched Oliva's bottom line. So, the king of the prison decided to teach this young upstart a lesson. Unexpectedly, Baki wasn't upset at all by such a great insult, instead displaying an unprecedented fighting spirit. Baki's laughter echoed in Oliva's ears like a nightmare. For the first time, the king of the prison felt such humiliation. Oliva found the warden and announced his decision. He wanted not only a decisive battle with Baki but also to have this century's fight broadcast live across the country. There was no doubt that Oliva wanted to defend his title in front of the world. Thinking of the huge traffic fees from the broadcast, the warden immediately agreed without hesitation. Oliva went to the solitary cell to tell Baki the news, but unexpectedly, Baki asked for the fight to start right then and there. Oliva intended to refuse, but Baki showed no mercy, starting with a high-flying roundhouse kick that sent Oliva's blood spraying. Oliva slapped Baki away in an instant. The terrifying force directly broke through several dozen centimeters of the wall. Then Oliva revealed his muscular body. Seeing this, Baki also flexed, lightly moving his arm to sever his own limbs and then using his powerful muscles to stop the blood flow. With his blood-thinning fingers, he successfully broke free from the thumb cuffs. Thus, the strongest fight in history officially began. Baki took the initiative with a heavy punch directly to Oliva's chest, but he still couldn't shake Oliva's defense and was instead firmly caught by the hand. Then Oliva gathered all his strength at the ruptured wall, pulling Baki over. The entire wall instantly shattered, and Baki fell to the ground unconscious. But Oliva clearly didn't intend to give his opponent a chance to breathe. He grabbed Baki's ankle and began to swing him around like a towel. The immense impact nearly caused Baki to pass out on the spot. Unexpectedly, Oliva accelerated, crashing through 5 walls with his own body. Oliva then grabbed Baki and, like throwing away trash, smashed him against the iron gate. After gathering his strength, he unleashed a devastating punch on Baki. As if the 20-centimeter thick iron gate was nothing, Oliva's eyes were unusually calm, as if the outcome of this duel had been predetermined. No doubt, this is the absolute confidence of a strong man in his own power, clearly unable to stand the provocation in his opponent's eyes. Baki, despite the intense pain, fought back, but clearly, he underestimated the strength of the king of the prison. Despite Oliva's huge size, he was not a bit slower. He grabbed Baki's attacking left leg, then completely ignored his opponent's attacks and swung Baki around, smashing him to the ground with a clang. In an instant, a loud boom echoed, and the entire prison fell into a deathly silence. Baki lay on the ground, his pupils dilated, obviously knocked unconscious by this attack. Just when everyone thought the dust of the battle was about to settle, the situation took a turn in the next moment. Baki entered a strange state, completely immersed in Oliva's unparalleled power. This huge gap in strength brought about a sense of defeat, which then triggered Baki's demon brain power. Then, Baki's imagined body began to melt, spreading like water across the entire prison floor. Suddenly, Baki leaped into the air, as if he had undergone some transformation, exuding an imposing aura. Oliva watched all this with a cold eye, completely unmoved by Baki's transformation, until he saw the water stains on the ground, which resembled Yujiro's demon back. At this moment, Oliva finally realized that Baki now possessed the strength to be taken seriously. Baki, just standing there, emitted a terrifying oppressive force, like Musashi Miyamoto, a legendary samurai from 1,000 years ago in Japan. With just one strike, Oliva, the freest man on earth, was knocked out cold. This scene shocked everyone present, and even Oliva himself didn't understand what had happened. The guards quickly reviewed the security footage in slow motion and found that Baki's punching speed had reached a terrifying 0.1 seconds. It's known that the fastest reaction time from brain signal to body action is about 0.5 seconds. Now, having evolved, Baki, with his demon brain and demon back, had broken through physiological limits. No doubt, Baki's speed now even surpassed that of his father, Yujiro Hanma. Oliva clearly showed he wasn't convinced. As America's top man, Oliva also had his own trump card moves. In the next second, under Baki's astonished gaze, Oliva curled his entire body's muscles to protect all his vital areas. Baki was curious to see how strong Oliva's trump card was, but his full-powered roundhouse kick failed to cause any damage and was instead deflected by Oliva's terrifying muscles. Baki, undeterred, gathered all his strength and used the ultimate martial arts technique, steel body. This secret technique, exclusive to karate, can increase explosive power 100-fold by hardening the arm muscles. A master of this technique could even punch through a bowling ball, but this punch, powerful enough to destroy heavens and earth, still achieved nothing against such bizarre defense. Such defense was beyond Baki's understanding. While he was still in shock, Oliva suddenly grabbed Baki and slowly opened his massive body, swallowing Baki like a giant abyssal mouth. When Baki reappeared, his pupils were dilated, and he was almost unconscious. If not for Yujiro's sake, Baki's life might have ended there. Oliva looked down at the half-dead Baki with provocative words, killing with his speech. He forced Baki to admit defeat verbally. Otherwise, even if he killed him, his attack would not stop. But Hanma family members never knew what surrender was. This ignited Oliva's anger. He raised his foot and stumped towards Baki's face. 2 consecutive stomps missed. Oliva, angered, used the abyssal mouth again, trying to end the match, but the same move was ineffective against a top martial artist. Baki inserted his fingers directly into Oliva's nostrils. Blood spurted out instantly. Baki, without any rules, broke Oliva's move. This became the last straw that broke the opponent. So, the two made a deal. From this moment, they abandoned all techniques and decided the outcome in the most primitive way. They began the most brutal exchange of blows. Even if their faces were twisted and blood spattered, neither would back down. Such a fierce battle earned respect from everyone watching, regardless of the final outcome. They were both the bravest warriors. Baki managed to overpower Oliva with his strength, a result that Oliva found hard to accept. Finally, he staked his pride as America's top man and used all his strength to throw the strongest punch. This attack nearly knocked Baki out, but a sinister smile appeared on his corner of his mouth. Then, with equal force, Baki's last strike landed on Oliva's face. This time, it was Oliva who fell completely unconscious. With the defeat of the King of Strength, Oliva, Baki cleared all obstacles before facing Yujiro. Perhaps the long-awaited father-son battle is not far off.